I wanted people to see me like they saw me on Instagram, you know, in those static, curated photos. I wanted to be that one snapshot. I didn't want to be a moving human being that could be perceived from all angles. I did feel like in photos I looked beautiful, but I felt like a catfish because I was hiding my side profile. So when I was younger, I really didn't like my nose. It was okay when people viewed me from the front, but when people were walking next to me, I would get quite uncomfortable, quite panicky. I would try to kind of maneuver them so they were facing me straight on, particularly if they were guys that I fancied. Hello everybody, I'm Alessia. For those of you that are new to this YouTube channel, welcome. Today I'm going to be talking specifically about my nose, about my relationship with my nose and how that's changed. I used to really hate my side profile, which I'll show you quickly now. I'll get to my story in a moment, but I just want to make it really clear to you that this video is not about telling you what to do. It's not about shaming you for wanting aesthetic surgery, for wanting a nose job. Not at all. I wanted to change my nose. I didn't like this bump that I had and that it wasn't, you know, a small button nose. I wanted surgery, not only on my nose, on my chest, on my legs, on my boobs. It would be very hypocritical of me to judge you for wanting surgery. I have a lot of empathy for people that want to change their facial features because they're insecure about them. I hope that makes you feel a little bit more comfortable going into this video, knowing that I'm not coming from a place of shame on you, you're not a feminist if you want to get work done. I don't think that's right. As feminists, as women, as people that want to bring about change in society to help free women from the shackles of patriarchy, we should not be shaming and blaming women for wanting surgery. We should be questioning the standards and the systems that make them want to get it in the first place. Shaming women for changing their appearance, for getting surgery in this current climate, in the world that we live in, is a bit like shaming somebody who is a people pleaser after growing up in a narcissistic household. Both are coping mechanisms shaped by their environment. We should be empathetic and curious about the root cause. Women don't just wake up one day and decide to hate their features that they've had since the day they were born. They don't suddenly go, oh, okay, I hate my thin lips now and I need to change them. They learn to hate these features. They learn that these certain things about them are ugly through culture, fashion, Instagram, media, movies. From a very young age, I learned to view my nose as ugly through lots of different things, lots of subtle influences. For example, watching Disney films. My nose is more like the villains' noses in Disney films than it is the heroes, the princesses. In fact, I'm going to show you an image now. My nose is more like Maleficent's nose than it is Snow White's. And when you're younger, you're really taking in all the messaging around you. You're like a sponge. So if you can physically identify more with the villain than the good girl, the princess, that's going to affect you, how you see yourself, your self-perception. Especially when the world is telling you your looks are the most important thing as a woman. We live in a world that only wants to celebrate women that fit the very narrow and boring Western beauty standards. So feeling ugly, being labelled as ugly, can be so painful. It can make you feel so worthless. We have to do a lot to unlearn all the toxic things we learned growing up. We have to pour a lot of time and energy into teaching ourselves that we actually are beautiful inside and out. That takes a lot of working against what we're being told by society. That takes a rebellious character. I actually think a lot of the people that watch my videos are rebellious characters. And I love that. I think you need to be a rebellious woman in order to like yourself. Do you know what? At the moment, I'm feeling such a strong calling to talk about aesthetic surgery and to maybe help some women see the negative sides to getting surgery, because I think there's so much pushing us in the direction of getting it and spending all our money on changing our face so we fit those Western beauty standards, and so little encouraging us to realise that we are so beautiful because we're unique, and that our time and energy is precious, and we can pour it into things that are going to do so much more for us. There's such a push for us all to look the same at the moment. And I think that's really sad. The language that we're participating in and consuming online really normalizes the idea that we should constantly be changing our bodies and trying to hide aspects of our bodies and faces. Oh, this is how you hide your wrinkles. This is how you flatter your figure. Make sure your dress is cutting off at this part of your leg. It will make your leg look longer and slimmer. It will give the illusion that you look younger. All this language suggests that we have something to hide, that we should be altering our bodies to give off this illusion of beauty. And this then further insinuates that actually we're not beautiful. I really want to disrupt that language and that narrative, because that's what gets women into these situations where they are spending a lot of time and money on changing their physique, and then later on maybe regretting it, or being left with very little money or little self-esteem. For a lot of women, we feel we have no choice. We feel we have to get the nose job to feel at peace within ourselves. I think it's easy to think that you're going to feel this way about your appearance forever, that you're going to forever be this passionately disgusted by your looks. For me, that's how I felt. It was a really strong feeling of, oh my gosh, I just almost can't look at that part of my body because it's just so wrong. And that makes me so sad to think about now. It's just my nose. Something that allows me to breathe and smell delicious food. At the time, I thought that I was always going to care a lot about my nose. I thought I was always going to want to change it, and I was always going to be upset with it in its natural form. But things have changed. It's very hard to contemplate that 10 years down the line, 5 years down the line, maybe even 2 years down the line, you could feel very different. That your fears, your goals, your self-perception might have changed. There was a point in my life where I was very black or white. This is a good feature, this is a bad feature. I don't have a nice nose. I felt so strongly about that back then. I think if younger me could hear me speaking now and kind of enter my brain and see all my thoughts, she'd be very shocked. She would be so surprised to see how much self-acceptance I've cultivated, how much respect and almost love I have for my features that I once hated. I'm really glad I never got the nose job, altered my legs and my chest, got the boob lift. But there was a time in which I would have really gone for it if I had the money, if I had the means. Over time, my looks have just become lower on my list of priorities, and I'm still working towards that. It's still a daily thing. You kind of have to work towards it constantly as a woman in this world obsessed with appearance, obsessed with putting you down a peg or two. Women are controlled through beauty. There are so many industries that benefit from a woman that hates her appearance. So yeah, we have to really work towards embracing how we are. So when I was younger, I really didn't like my nose. It was okay when people viewed me from the front, but when people were walking next to me, I would get quite uncomfortable, quite panicky. I would try to kind of maneuver them so they were facing me straight on, particularly if they were guys that I fancied. I didn't realise it at the time, but I think looking back, I felt like a bit of an imposter because people would sometimes call me pretty or beautiful. But then I would see that I didn't have features that the Disney princesses had, that the Instagram girls had. I didn't have the really small, cute button nose from the side. So I'd think, oh, people think I'm pretty, but actually I'm not. But I need to keep up this illusion that I am and con people into thinking I am. So I'll make sure that people don't view me from that side angle, because then they'll realise that actually I'm really ugly. I really felt that way. I was constantly self-monitoring, making sure that people were viewing me in good lighting, from good angles, making sure that I was constantly wearing the right makeup, the right clothing that flatters me. I was doing that to make sure that people didn't find out the truth, that actually I wasn't beautiful. So much of the time when I entered the world, when I was in social situations, when I was interacting with guys that I liked or wanted to like me, I was in my head, focusing on looking the best, pouting, finding the best angle. It just meant that I didn't put my personality forward, my thoughts forward, that I wasn't critical of the people I was hanging out with, aware. I was just so consumed with my physicality. So naturally, I was a shell of myself. I lacked personality. I lacked identity. I lacked connections with people that made me feel heard and seen. Didn't help either that I was taking a lot of photos for the male gaze, because that made me really aware of what my good angles were. I was taking photos not to enjoy that process, to show off an outfit that I loved, or to be creative, or to have fun, but to impress men. And if you're taking photos to impress others, thinking about their opinions and possible judgments, it's not a fun process. Taking photos of yourself should be fun. You know, you should pick up the camera when you want to, when you feel empowered, when you feel confident, when you feel sexy, and take a photo that you want to take, that you're going to gaze upon and be like, oh, I love that. But no, I was taking photos for men, and that just made me so much more aware of every little flaw. I very quickly learnt and solidified in my head that I looked good from straight on, but not from the side. I wanted people to see me like they saw me on Instagram, you know, in those static, curated photos. I wanted to be that one snapshot. I didn't want to be a moving human being that could be perceived from all angles. I did feel like in photos I looked beautiful, but I felt like a catfish because I was hiding my side profile. I spent so much of my time when I was at school, when I was at uni, focusing on how I looked to others rather than just being myself. It's really sad. I look back and I think, wow, most of those people have no idea who I was as a person, what I was going through behind closed doors. I really couldn't express myself because so much of my energy was going into being controlled. Make sure you're facing him from this angle. Make sure that you're pouting your lips. Don't show your teeth. Was another thing I was insecure about. When you spend so much time monitoring your physical appearance, you withhold your real beauty, your personality. your humour, your interests. My inner circle, the people I hung out with, reflected my appearance-obsessed mindset. I lacked self-respect and depth and identity, and the people around me treated me accordingly. They didn't care about me as a person, about what I was going through. When I was going through a breakup, they didn't stop to ask if I was okay, because they were so used to me being this doll, empty inside, but beautiful on the outside, performing constantly. The way that people treated me and thought about me back then, I think in some ways mirrored how I treated and thought about myself. Looks mattered more than anything else to the people around me at that time, because that's what I prioritised too. I could have had people that actually cared about me around if I allowed myself to be more than a body and a face. Back in the day when I was really self-conscious about my nose and I would talk to myself in these really unfair ways, I was also observing other women's bodies and being nasty and critical in my head. I was comparing myself to them. I was finding their flaws. It took up so much brain space, and it becomes your lens that you kind of put in front of your eyes if you engage with it enough, if you feed into those thoughts. It wasn't until I actively decided to stop talking about other women, about their appearance in a really nasty way, and I extended the same grace to myself, that my world started to expand, that my insecurities started to lessen, that inner critic started to hush up. I really started to gravitate towards the right people when I stopped objectifying myself, when I started to challenge beauty standards. Gradually, I started to change and my life started to change. I think engaging in feminist thinking and literature really gave me that kickstart. But it took time. It's not a quick fix. It also took me being active in my personal life. It took me going for the things that I wanted to go for, starting a YouTube channel, and proving to myself that my worth lies in other things, my voice, my ability to practice empathy. It wasn't until I really started to fathom that I was talented at speaking, at researching, that I allowed myself to stop fixating on perfecting my appearance. Improving your physical appearance through, buying the latest cream that smooths your skin often doesn't quiet that inner critic. I know we're kind of sold the idea that if we invest in all of these products, we're going to feel more confident externally. But I actually disagree with that. I think that inner critic is always ready to find more flaws to fixate on. When you've ticked the box and fixed one flaw, another will show up, especially if you're playing into the idea that you're someone that can be fixed and perfected. From my experience, the more I fed into the idea that I could fix my physical flaws, the more of a slippery slope it became. And I've heard people say this about surgery. Once you get your nose done, you're going to want to get your boobs done, you're going to want to get Botox. It's a slippery slope. Once you change one part of your appearance, you find another part to obsess over. A silly example that I'm going to share with you that we can all kind of relate to is cleaning the house. Once you start scrubbing one area, maybe you're cleaning the kitchen and you're really, you've got your focus eyes on the kitchen, you really do start to notice things that you wouldn't have seen if you were just perusing around the house. You start to notice every crumb, every stain, every bit of dust. The more you zoom in, the more you find. And I think the same goes with when we're looking at our faces and our bodies. So my simple advice to you is to stop looking. Where you focus your attention shapes your point of view. Honestly, I'm living proof of that, because now I focus a lot of my attention on feminism, on women's issues, on sexism, and now all I see is men mansplaining, is women being taken advantage of, is women competing with each other. It's so true that your inner dialogue, what you're noticing and taking note of in your head, informs your reality, your perception of the world and of yourself. And I know it's not great to constantly be aware of how we're mistreated as women. It can be deeply frustrating and tiring, but it fuels me to do the work that I do on YouTube. And I'd much rather focus on that because I can do something about that. And it gives me purpose, rather than focus on changing my appearance and hating myself. The thoughts that we entertain become our identity. And I used to feed into those nasty thoughts, the ones that told me I needed to be ashamed of my body. I needed to wear a tankini instead of a bikini because it hid a major flaw. I, alongside sexist societal messaging, convinced myself that I wasn't good enough because I didn't look perfect. I spoke to myself in horrible ways pretty much every day. And that makes me so sad to look back on, because younger me deserved so much better than that. There was so much that she could have explored and enjoyed if she wasn't consumed with body image and facial insecurities. But you know what? In a weird way, I'm kind of glad I went through all of that, because it's brought me here today, speaking to you. I find such great purpose in trying to help other women like themselves. It kind of heals younger me, because I could have really used with somebody like me back then. If I didn't do what I was doing now, I think I would have a lot of pain and hurt and resentment still. But I've kind of turned that pain and those really difficult experiences into something good. I'm connecting with lovely women online, hopefully making them feel a tiny bit better, hopefully giving them a brighter path to follow rather than the doomed one that encourages you to spend all your time and money on perfecting your appearance. Please do subscribe. Drop this video a like. I would really, really appreciate the support. Comment down below. Share the love with other women in the comment sections. And also, if you would like to connect with me on a one-on-one basis, I do offer a service where we can chat about everything and anything I cover in my videos. So drop me an email if you want to know more. I'll put my email up now and in the description box. Sending you so much love. I hope you have a really lovely day, morning, evening, peaceful sleep. Bye angels, see you next week with another video.